All right, let's jump right in, shall we? Today we're doing a deep dive into Spotify's Q3 2024 financials.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah, we're talking the Form 6K they filed with the SEC.
Got it.
And we're going past the headlines here.
Yeah.
Really digging for those golden nuggets that tell us what's really happening behind the scenes at the world's biggest music streaming service.
The biggest.
Well, one of the biggest, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting because even though Spotify themselves say that the global economy is a bit shaky, their numbers are still pretty impressive.
Yeah, exactly. Over 640 million people are using Spotify every month.
Wow.
That's up 11% from this time last year.
Huge growth.
And premium subscribers. Those are up 12%.
Wow.
Hitting a massive 252 million.
That's a lot of premium users.
And overall,
yeah.
Spotify brought in $11.43 billion in revenue in just the first 9 months of 2024.
Really?
Yeah, a 19% surge.
So people are still hitting that play button.
They are. But the question is, how's Spotify planning to keep this momentum going?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
Well, this year they've been making a pretty big push into audiobooks.
They have, haven't they?
Yeah, they added 7 new markets.
Yeah, I saw that.
Launched a U.S. Audiobook Access Tier for the free users, and even rolled out a basic plan in some places.
Interesting.
Premium features, but no audiobooks.
Huh. So what do you think of that strategy?
It seems like they're testing the waters, right?
Yeah, like dipping their toes in.
Seeing how much people are willing to pay for just the audiobooks, maybe segmenting the market a bit.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. Definitely looks like they see audiobooks as a major growth area.
Okay.
But they're still figuring out the business model.
Makes sense. And speaking of pricing, premium ARPU, average revenue per user, up 9% this quarter.
Really?
Yeah, sitting at 4.71 euro.
Wow, so they're raising prices.
They are, if you notice that on your own premium plan.
Yeah, actually, I think I have.
So the big question is, are you okay with it? If it means more content and features.
I mean,
it's a trade-off, something to think about.
For sure.
But while you're thinking about that, think about this.
Okay.
All this sound doesn't come cheap.
Right.
The cost of revenue section of the report gives us a peek into the world of royalties.
That's right. A complex world.
Not just a flat fee for artists.
Oh, yeah. Much more complicated than that.
We're talking revenue shares, per user fees, minimum guarantees.
And audiobooks.
Oh, yeah, audiobooks.
They're really changing things.
How so?
Well, content costs have gone up significantly from last year.
I see. So how does this compare to other streaming services?
That's a good question.
Is this a bad sign for Spotify?
Or just the cost of being at the top?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. And that brings us to podcasts.
Oh, yeah. Podcast push and pull.
Right. So on one hand, ad-supported revenue.
Which is mostly from podcasts, right?
Largely, yeah.
That saw a decent 6% growth.
Yeah.
Podcast impressions are up too.
Good news.
But then they've been cutting costs and personnel in their podcast production.
That is interesting.
Makes you wonder if Spotify is going all in on podcasts.
Or are they having second thoughts?
It's hard to say, isn't it?
It is. The podcasting world's getting more competitive.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe they're shifting to a strategy focused on high-quality exclusive.
Only on Spotify.
Right. We'll have to wait and see.
We will, but we can't talk about Spotify's future without talking about the legal stuff.
Oh, you're right.
Especially all the copyright issues.
Can't ignore those, especially the mechanical licensing collective lawsuit.
The MLC, that's a big one.
It is.
Big ramifications.
Potentially.
So the MLC claims Spotify is underpaying royalties for their premium service.
Specifically because it includes audiobooks now.
Right. And the potential liability is huge. 94 million.
Wow.
And that's just for the first 6 months.
Of offering audiobooks.
Yeah, so break this down for us. What could this mean for Spotify? And what about the music industry as a whole?
Well, this lawsuit goes way beyond just Spotify.
Does it?
Yeah, it raises some fundamental questions about royalties.
Okay.
And how they should be calculated in this new world of bundled services.
I see.
A ruling against Spotify could really change things.
For them and other platforms?
Possibly, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot to think about.
It is.
And we've only scratched the surface.
Lots more to cover.
We'll be diving into Spotify's cash flow and those mysterious exchangeable notes after the break. So stay with us. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about some pretty heavy legal stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But let's lighten things up a bit, shall we? Let's look at something positive.
Like what?
Literally cash.
Oh, right.
Say
Spotify's cash on hand has grown quite a bit.
It has, hasn't it?
To $6.08 billion.
And short-term investments, too.
That's a good chunk of change.
Especially with all those lawsuits.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be feeling good with that much cash. But what?
They've said they might need more funding.
Really?
Yeah, in the future.
Interesting. So what could they be planning?
Right.
Acquisitions?
Maybe
investment?
new technology.
It's like a mystery.
Ooh, I love a good mystery.
Any theories?
I don't know. What do you think? Big acquisitions.
Possibly.
A podcasting platform?
Maybe.
Some AI company for music recommendations?
Could be, but before we go too far down that rabbit hole, remember those exchangeable notes?
Oh, yeah, the ones due in 2026?
Yeah.
I have to admit, those are a little over my head.
Complicated stuff.
Yeah, remind me what those are all about again.
So basically, they're a type of debt.
Okay.
That Spotify's issued.
Okay.
And they can be exchanged for shares.
Spotify shares.
Yeah, under certain conditions.
Okay.
Now, here's the tricky part.
All right.
If a lot of these notes are exchanged, it could dilute the value of existing shares.
Oh, I see.
Makes things less valuable for other investors.
So it's like adding more slices to the pie.
Exactly.
Each slice gets a little smaller.
Right. So investors are definitely watching this closely.
They are. And get this.
What?
The value of these notes changes.
Fluctuates.
Yeah. And at the end of Q3, they were worth $1.34 billion.
That's a lot of money.
It is. So what does this all mean?
It's complicated, right?
It is.
Big cash reserve. But they might need more funding.
And these notes could change the share value.
Exactly. A lot for the average listener to understand.
You're right.
But it comes down to this.
What's that?
Spotify is changing.
Okay.
Trying to go for global audio dominance.
Makes sense.
But there are some hurdles in the way.
Like we've been talking about.
Yeah, the legal battles, the audiobook strategy, the competition in podcasts.
So much to think about.
It is. And that brings us to the big question.
What's that?
What does this all mean for us?
The listeners.
The everyday Spotify users who just want to enjoy our music.
Get our podcast.
Right. And that's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Coming up after the break.
Stay tuned.
All right, we're back and ready to wrap up our Spotify saga.
It's been a wild ride, hasn't it?
It has. Impressive growth, audiobooks, legal battles, even some financial mysteries.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
And it's clear that Spotify's at a crossroads.
A turning point.
They're trying to balance all this expansion and innovation.
With profitability.
And it's all happening in this crazy industry that's changing so fast.
Right. A lot of moving parts.
It's like they're building this huge audio empire.
Brick by brick.
But they're doing it during an earthquake.
Wow, that's a good analogy.
And we're right there with them.
The listener.
Feeling all the tremors.
Experiencing the aftershocks.
But we're not just passive bystanders in all of this, are we?
No, definitely not.
The choices Spotify makes, the things they try to do.
It's all influenced by us?
The listeners.
Our listening habits.
How much we're willing to pay.
All of that plays a role.
It really does. This deep dive has given us a glimpse behind the curtain.
But the story's still going.
It is. So let's talk about the future.
Okay, what do you see in Spotify's crystal ball?
Will they be the ultimate audio destination?
The one-stop shop for everything.
I mean, it's possible.
They have the size, the resources.
The ambition.
But there are challenges, too.
The competition's intense.
Yeah, the legal landscape is complicated.
And everything just keeps getting more expensive.
It does, and then there's the audiobooks.
Oh, right, the wild card.
Will they be a big part of Spotify's future?
Or just a little side thing?
And if they do go all in...
How do they deal with all the royalty stuff?
That's the million-dollar question.
Isn't it?
That MLC lawsuit could change the whole streaming industry.
Wow.
Make Spotify and others rethink how they price things.
How they handle royalties.
It's a pivotal moment.
For audio entertainment.
And the outcome, nobody knows.
So what do you think?
Yeah, listener, we want to hear from you.
What does the future hold for Spotify?
Will they stay on top?
Or will something disrupt them?
What features do you want?
What challenges do they need to address?
Tell us what you think.
Your predictions.
Hopes and dreams for the future of audio.
Because it's all about you.
Your ears.
They'll decide what happens to this audio empire.
That's a great way to put it.
And on that note,
yeah,
we'll wrap up this deep dive.
But the conversation continues.
Keep listening.
Keep exploring.
Keep those earbuds buzzing.
With the sounds that you love.
Thanks for joining us.